Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey and I'm here with Kaz, and we're here to talk about a number of things this week because there's a lot of IndyCar news as we inch closer and closer to the season opener at St. Pete. IndyCar, Chevy, and Honda dropped some big news today, Kaz.
That's right. We were all set to sit down and really analyze testing at Sebring that was earlier this week. Still excited to do that. We're still going to. But there is no way we can kick this podcast off without mentioning the news that was announced today, which is that Honda and Chevrolet have both re-signed their contracts to continue manufacturing engines for IndyCar for a number of years in the future. We're so excited. Chevrolet, I think we knew definitely would be back, but Honda, there was a question mark over. No matter how much success you've had, you've got to make money. So super thrilled to see them back and committing to many more years where they've been
this was good. We talked about this in the past that Honda was not a lock to be back. They were trying to make the business case for this, make sure it helped them sell cars in the United States. That's a big thing. They've got their F1 program as well. So there's a lot of commitment to going into this. This is a 40 to $50 million program. So it's not like it's an easy decision to make, but they came through. So now Honda and Chevy will both be building new engines starting with the 2028 car. That's a 2.4 liter twin turbo V6 hybrid. So they're identical specs, but of course, because they're building them separately, who knows? We're going to have an engine shootout, which is great.
I love that too. With the trends that we've been experiencing with Honda kind of picking up so much traction and they seem so difficult to catch up with. Let's reset everything. Let's start with new engines and remix the grid.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. This year and next year, they're going to continue to run the 2.2 liter V6 and with their hybrid powertrain. So that will be an all new engine though in 2028. So looking forward to that. They did say it's a multi-year deal. They didn't release details on how long that multi-year commitment is, but it's clear that if you're going to make that kind of investment in a new engine, it's not going to be a 2 or 3 year deal. We're probably looking closer 5 to 10, I would think, in that contract that they've got out there now. So I think that's really good. But one of the funny things in this deal is that not only did they buy into the right to sell engines to IndyCar, they each got a charter.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I have a vague understanding of what that means, but I really need a walkthrough on this.
Okay.
So having a charter means you have an entry bid onto the grid.
Right. A charter is a guaranteed spot on the grid for your car and at every race except Indy. Okay. Indy, you still have to earn your way in, and non-chartered cars can make the grid at Indy. In other races, basically you have to be a chartered car to race. So what they've done is they've given a charter to Chevy and they've given a charter to Honda. They can, if they want, run a one-car team. They could go out, hire a driver, hire mechanics, do all this stuff, and run a one-car team if they wanted to.
The Honda.
But what's probably going to happen is they will lend that charter to another team. They can't lend it to, like Honda can't lend it to Ganassi or Andretti, right? Because they already have 3 charters and that's the maximum you can have on a team.
Okay.
So it's probably going to be one of the 2-car teams for both, like AJ Foyt for Chevy or
I've actually seen some speculation for Honda that they might already be working with Meyer Shank.
It could be, right. So and Meyer Shank has that technical
technical
relationship
partnership with
with Ganassi.
Ganassi. That's a great pick for Honda.
Right. Because typically, when Honda has tried new stuff, when they've done developmental work, they've partnered with Ganassi on that. So,
Sure.
what this does, though, is it gives each team, each manufacturer, really a developmental car where they have 100% control over it. So, it will really allow them to work with another team, put a car in the field, get all the data, help make their engines better in a way that they may not be able to if they're just working with a team in a partnership scenario.
Sure. Okay. Well,
So,
thank you. That clarifies that quite a bit. That is what I thought we were looking at, but I wanted to make sure that we were looking at the potential for, I know it's much more likely they're going to partner with a team,
yeah,
but we're looking at the potential for Chevrolet to enter the Chevrolet team into IndyCar, which would be
that would be
pretty nuts.
cool. But, given how
The
hard it
partnership's the
is,
smarter decision.
yeah, you'd have to go out and running a one car team is expensive
Hmm.
for the one car. I mean, it's not half as much to run two cars, but by running two cars, you do have some economies of scale and all of that.
Absolutely.
So adding a third car to a two-car team, you get even more of that. So
You
yeah,
have the built-in infrastructure of the team
I'd
already to help you
I'd
out.
be really
Make
surprised.
that is the right decision.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
cool that it could.
yeah.
Interesting to think about. And it opens us
Well,
up for a lot of possibilities in 2028.
I mean, there's Prema setting out there. Maybe someone makes an investment given that the availability of that extra charter is sitting out there and makes that team more valuable. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you know what? I was thinking we might talk about Prema after we talk about testing, but since we brought it up, let's just do it before.
Sure.
Um, Prema is, we just haven't updated in a while, so I think we should
Yep.
just talk about it real quick. Prema is at this stage not going to be entering the grid in the month of March. There's no chance they miss the first or they make the first four races of the season. I've seen some indication that whoever's involved in those talks might be targeting Long Beach at the beginning of April. That means missing out on four races. Doug Bowles from IndyCar has made some interesting statements about, we've got 25 entrants and 27 possible cars on the grid. Prema does not have any charters right now,
Hmm.
but Doug did make it clear that they would be allowed to enter races as a non-charter team if they were able to come back because we
Right.
want them back. Absolutely.
We want them
Um,
back. We need
we
some
want them
sponsors to
back.
jump in there. Come on, Sargento,
It
somebody,
It was such a
write a
great first
check.
season. And I really, in this whole thing, I really just feel horrible for Schwartzman and Eilert, who both had some really fantastic highlights. And they're sitting there
Yeah.
under contract with Prema, can't look for a seat on another team in IndyCar right now. It's
Even
just a
if they could,
shame.
there isn't one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's just a shame.
yeah.
Doug Bowles did say that if there were to be another entrant this year, they'd be looking for somebody who would be able to commit for the full season. So they'd be looking for a two-car team to commit to adding a third, as opposed to allowing another team to come in and, do a one-off entry for 5 or 6 different races.
Right.
It's just a shame overall. It seems like it seems like every little, they feel optimistic briefly and then it just falls apart
It,
again.
yeah, it's really interesting. I'm surprised because all the other things around the series, the trajectory is moving in the right direction. I mean, this engine deal wouldn't have gotten done if the Fox deal hadn't gotten done.
Hmm.
They Honda specifically mentioned in their press release that the deal with Fox and the added visibility was critical to their decision to come back.
Yep.
So I think that's part of it. And I'm surprised with that someone else isn't ready to jump in and take over that team and can should be able to bring a couple sponsors in because this is it's not quite F1 level, but viewership in the US is very strong for IndyCar.
And it's
Was
only
last year,
growing.
and I think it's going to grow this year given the addition of the Arlington race, the
Hmm.
DC race,
Hmm.
and the expanding popularity of the 500 again. So
Yeah.
I really think someone will come in at some point and take that team and move it forward.
Well, hopefully, this engine manufacturer announcement today might give somebody who was on the fence about working with Prema a push in the right
Hmm.
direction. Missing 4 races. I mean, you're not going to be competitive in the championship at that stage, but hey, at least
Yeah.
we would have 14 races with 27 cars on the grid in that case. So
Right.
a late
And
entry is just fine. Just do it.
yeah, I mean, having 25 cars versus 27, not a big deal in
We're not
most of the
really going to
tracks.
notice
Right.
ultimately, but
But
we could have more cars.
more cars, better, right? I mean, they still
There
have
could be
more
more
cars on
cars.
the grid than F1,
Mm-hmm.
even
And
with
it's
the
better.
addition of Cadillac to F1. So, and the racing's closer.
And the racing's closer. So let's talk about that racing. We got to see
Yes.
some real results this week for the first time in quite a while. So I Sebring testing took place over 2 days. Drivers were split into two groups. Group A drove in the morning on day
Hmm.
one and the afternoon on day two. Group B drove in the afternoon on day one and the morning on day two, just because those morning conditions are always a little bit cooler and better for times.
Right.
Um, and what we saw a couple of really interesting things. And the first person I want to talk about out of testing is Marcus Armstrong.
Yeah.
Now, Marcus finished eighth in the championship last year, which is a great finish for a
Right.
driver in his second full season in the series. This testing, he finished at the top of his group both times, had the
Right.
fastest overall time of day two, and had the fastest overall time of both days.
Right. He was
Marcus.
significant. He was more than 2/10 of a second faster than Alex Palou. This is a short track. It's only a 52-second lap.
Two
And it
tenths over that time is
and it
not
is
nothing.
a very bumpy and rough track. So it could simulate what's going to be happening in St. Pete uh, pretty well. So I think these results may be indicative of what we could see in that first
It's
race.
It's interesting that you mentioned that track simulating St. Petersburg because when I looked back into my notes from Content Day, Marcus specifically referenced how strong he felt about the car at St. Pete the last 2 years. Said that he made driver mistakes that put him back, but he feels that the car is really well suited to that track. So him being well suited to testing in Sebring then also makes sense. But I also the other thing that stood out for me from his content day interviews, everybody else, I mentioned this when we talked about
Right.
content days. Every other driver talked about how they need to find consistency. Marcus said, I've already found consistency. What I need is spectacular moments. And
Right.
he came out and had two
Yeah. He had
over a 2 day session.
two great days for him. So
So
he was consistently
spectacular,
spectacular.
which is kind of the hope. He said at his press conference that his hope was to finish third in the championship this year, third or better.
Right.
Looking at what he's done over testing, I that has to feel achievable.
Right. I
You
mean,
know, I mean, obviously it's going to be hard, but
right.
it seems
Yeah,
like
you've
maybe he
got,
does
I
have
mean,
those pieces in place.
he's running for Meyershank, a two-car team that
Hmm.
typically is in F1 terms a mid-pack, right?
Hmm.
You know, you've got Ganassi, Penske, Andretti, McLaren. So right there you've got 12 cars, right?
Hmm.
And if you want to finish third, you have to beat a lot of cars on those four teams.
And a lot of legendary drivers on
Yeah,
those four teams.
which I mean, good for him for having that goal and good for him for coming out of the gate like this at really the first meaningful practice day that we've seen.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. A couple of other standouts for me at this practice. Kirkwood, made a big statement to kind of position himself as the lead Andretti driver and
Yep, he
really
did.
take that. I thought that was very solid.
Although I do want to note, he specified at his conference at Content Days that there is no lead Andretti driver. He wanted to make sure everybody felt that.
Yeah, but
But
at the same time,
he was the highest finishing Andretti driver.
yeah, highest finishing, not by a ton, but I mean, he was more than a tenth of a second faster than Will.
Mhm.
So, that is a very solid result. And Marcus Ericsson finished ninth. So,
So while we're talking about Andretti, let's just chat about Will really quickly. Everybody wants to know how he's adjusting to the new car, new engine. First day, not so hot, 17th overall. Second day, quite hot, fourth overall. That's great for Will. And that says a couple of things to me. First of all, it says that Will Power is figuring things out pretty quickly. He's making decisions that will help him familiarize himself with a car in a way he can grow quickly. The other thing that this really highlights for me is that we do have to take these testing results with a grain of salt, right? This is just testing. They're not just trying to have the fastest time around the grid. I mean, of course, that's important. You would love to finish testing with the fastest time overall, but you're also figuring out, okay, especially for Will, who's coming from a completely different setup. When I used to do this, and this with my car, this was the result. How do I get that same result out of this car? So
sure.
he's going to be trying a bunch of things that he might not necessarily try in race conditions. And he might lose some time because of that, but he'll learn things that are incredibly valuable. So Will's results make me continue to be excited to see what he's ready to bring to an actual racing condition.
Sure. Well, and then the other big trend out of that I saw coming out of this practice is four of the five fastest cars on the grid on day two were Hondas.
Hondas.
So I'm not it looked like Chevy was making strides at the end of last year. We'll
Mhm.
see whether that's the case or not. Again, there wasn't a huge spread between these cars. The fastest car, Armstrong, was 52.3. McLaughlin, the fastest Chevy, was 52.6.
Sure.
So 3/10, not I mean, it's a
Three
gap,
tenths is huge.
but
Three tenths is huge,
yeah,
honestly. And again, we don't know that this is what we're going to see in the season, but if it is,
yeah, Chevy's still got some work to do. The second fastest Chevy car,
Joseph Newgarden.
Santino.
Oh, no way.
Yes,
Santino.
Santino
Wow.
in seventh place on day two. So
That's right.
again,
I thought you were just assuming that I would be excited if it was Joseph, and that's why you
no,
did that excited voice. You're right,
I
Santino.
just Santino, which is interesting. AJ Foyt looking strong again. Um,
And you know what? This is a great Santino did quite well, but let's take a look at the rookies now and talk about his teammate who finished 12th, just a tenth behind Alex Palou. Um,
right.
both AJ Foyt cars looked quite strong, including the car with the rookie in it. Santino and Kaio both talked at their interviews at Content Day about how much they like working together. And I think we might be seeing the results of a harmonious team right here.
Right. Yeah, and again, we're talking maybe a little more than a tenth of a second separating those two on the track. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch those two push each other
Hmm.
and help move that team forward. So
Yeah.
I was really impressed with that. Mick Schumacher had an interesting test, right?
Mix an interesting case. Now, when I when I think of rookies, it's hard for me to think of Mick Schumacher as a rookie, right? The guy's driven Formula One. The guy he's driven the top echelon of European racing. It's
Yep.
hard for me to think Mick Schumacher rookie, but he is, and we have to talk about him in the same category as we talk about Kaio and as we talk about Dennis Hauger. And guess what? Mick finished third. of the three rookies.
Right.
He did improve from day one to day two. And RLL continues to talk about his poise and his talent. And I don't by any means think that we're looking at, yeah, definitely Mick is going to finish third in the Rookie of the Year race this year. But this was his first opportunity to come out of the gate and say, I'm no rookie. And he didn't capture it the way I was hoping he would.
No, I mean, you look at that, and I mean, look at his teammates. Louis Foster was more than 3/10 of a second faster than him,
Mm-hmm.
on that, and so yeah, Mick definitely has some room to grow here.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Dennis Hauger, he finished 19th on day two. So about where you'd expect him to show
Mm-hmm.
up in a coin car. I mean, he wasn't that much slower than the other coin driver on the grid.
I think we need to stop calling this TBD and start calling it TBA because I
Yeah.
think we are waiting not on the decision, but the announcement. Romain Grosjean was at Content Day, though he did not do any public interviewing. He was there. Romain Grosjean was at and drove in Sebring testing. It seems like both he and the team think he's going to be in that Dale Coyne, and yet nobody's announcing it. What's going
Right.
on?
They're probably just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, trying to maybe get one more sponsor on board. I'm not exactly sure why they haven't made this announcement yet. I mean, at this point, they can't put anyone else in that car, right? I mean,
At
to
this
start the season, it would
at
be
this point, it
shocking.
honestly feels like a joke.
Yeah. It's just
Like,
like they're punking us now,
right?
right?
It's funny. I enjoy it. I'm confused as to why. Is there some tiny detail in the contract that needs to be worked out? Clearly it can't be that important of a detail if both the team and him are happy to send him out in the car.
Right.
So I don't know what we're waiting on. Part of me kind of hopes that like at St. Petersburg, they'll schedule a driver announcement and we'll all be like, okay, it's Roman, and then it'll just be somebody else. Like,
Just to punk us. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's gonna be Connor Daly. Here he is, our driver.
Uh,
But I love Roman and I'm happy to see him back. So just
yeah,
make with the telling us, Dale Coyne. Come on.
exactly. It seems silly. Maybe, we've got Phoenix coming up. We'll see if he shows up there. But yeah, we're a few weeks out from the start of the season, and to have that seat not announced and filled, yet someone showing up and testing in it, yeah,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. It's just
Uh,
fun. It's just fun. I'm deciding here and now that it's fun and I'm gonna
yeah,
find it fun, not annoying.
there you go. Okay, so anyone else surprise you or stand out at
Yeah,
the test?
I've got one more driver I want to talk about, and it's another driver without a seat. Ed Carpenter decided to bring their sim driver to testing. He drove both sessions on day two because he missed day one. Um, this driver, Hunter McElray, has driven one IndyCar race. He drove Mid Ohio 2024. He is technically a rookie as he's not done a full season. And guess what? He was the fastest rookie on the grid.
Yes, he was. He finished eighth on day two, and he was just 1/100th of a second slower than Santino Ferrucci. So that's quite a good result for Carpenter and for the Chevy engine and for this guy who doesn't have a lot of seat time. So
Might be looking to show himself. And you know what? This result flashed me all the way back to Milwaukee last year after Rasmussen won. And Ed Carpenter was sitting there next to him talking about finding rookies and how he feels
yeah,
like he's excellent at discovery, but often his rookies do wind up leaving for, maybe the higher echelon teams. He talked very seriously about how much retaining Christian Rasmussen would mean to him moving into the future. Um,
Right.
Look, I know this guy has driven another race. That this is not Ed Carpenter did not discover Hunter McElroy. But taking the time to invest in a rookie like that to bring him to these places and get him ready for the big stage is something that I continue to see Ed do well, and I'm really happy to see that. I hope that that will translate into building that team in the future and not just making it a launching pad for drivers to go elsewhere.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see whether Hunter shows up at Phoenix for the test. It was interesting that he was there as the only Ed Carpenter Racing driver.
Yeah, that's the other part of it that's fascinating is they did not. Ed Carpenter was the only team to sit out their regular drivers.
Right.
Interesting that they chose to bring their sim driver, give him the time, let him show what he can do. And interesting that they maybe didn't feel like their regular drivers needed that time and space. I wonder why you would make that decision.
Yeah, it may be a budget thing,
Hmm,
where I just need to get a car on the track and I'm, not going to spend money that I'm going to have to pay my top driver to show
sure.
up for that day. I don't know. But and they figured they could learn what they needed to about the car with their sim driver, who certainly has a lot of experience in and around the garage. So,
Sure. Testing is going to be just as much for the manufacturers as it is for the drivers. That is 100% true.
yep. So we'll see what happens. But more testing next week at Phoenix. So looking
Yay.
forward to seeing
Oval
what that brings.
testing.
Yeah, and
And we're super excited about that test because this will be the first indicator of if there's a high line at Phoenix,
right.
which all of the drivers they say if there's a high line at that race, lights out, let's go. It's going to be one of the coolest races of the season.
Yeah.
So let's cross
So
our fingers that we see something resembling comfort running up high at that oval.
So we'll see how that goes. But and then the other thing we wanted to talk about today was there were a few liveries announced over the last couple of weeks. So
We've seen some cars,
yeah.
absolutely. What's your favorite?
Well, I think I've already mentioned it, but my favorite is Kiffin Simpson's car for Ganassi, the new Sunoco car. Part of that goes back to when I was a kid, and Sunoco was a big sponsor of IndyCar, Trans Am, Can Am, a number of other things. And these were iconic cars. Funny thing is, when I was watching Sunoco livery cars, they were sponsoring Penske back in the day. So I was kind of surprised to see it on Ganassi. I wonder if that's a little thumb in the eye to
Yeah,
Roger.
maybe
I
maybe
don't
they've got
know.
a little beef with Roger and they're
But
well, we'll go to your rival then, bud.
yeah, but I don't know if Sunoco offered it to Penske first and he said, no, I've got people. Okay, we'll go over here. But I just think that's it's a classic sponsor. It's a great livery, beautiful looking car that way. It's going to be so easy to see on the grid. So I hope Kiffin has a great season in that car.
Yeah, I hope he gives us a lot of reason to flash the camera to that because I agree. It's a great looking car. I am quite partial to Will Power's Andretti. I think
Hmm.
it's very cool. Added a little extra black into it, so it's not just that bright yellow that we're used to seeing from Colton. It's really neat looking,
Yeah.
and it doesn't look like any other car on the grid. So again, we're looking at something that's going to be very easy to spot.
And
I'm looking forward to seeing that car.
I thought the choice of the sponsor too was interesting. The TWG, that's basically the owner of Andretti Racing, right? And they also, they're the fielding the Formula Cadillac Formula One team. So this is sort of their coming out as a corporation above and beyond sort of the racing thing. That I think this is technically TWGAI. So
Yeah,
their
it is.
AI division is sponsoring the car, which is
And
probably,
interestingly, that is an active partnership. Andretti
yeah,
is actually working with TWGAI to improve their processes in the garage. Most sponsorship partnerships don't necessarily look that way. So that kind of adds a little extra level of importance to it.
Yeah. So I think those were the big ones. A couple of interesting ones. Scott Dixon's car they unveiled, I think yesterday, and it is unchanged. It's the PNC car, and the reason it's unchanged is because the sponsor, their tagline is perfectly boring. So they
Mhm.
wanted to do a perfectly boring livery introduction. The idea that, they're just consistent, right?
Same team, same garage, same incredibly talented and reliable driver. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I totally when I heard that announcement, I immediately thought of you as a marketing guy. That's
Yeah.
a good piece of marketing, especially not just it doesn't just work for the sponsor, it also works for Scott Dixon. Not to say he's boring because he's not,
Right.
but he's consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's going to be consistent this year, but also he's going to push Alex for
Yeah,
everything he has this year because obviously he's coming to the end of his career. Who knows how
sure.
many more years we're going to see Dixon on the grid? Does he have one more championship in him? Maybe. Does
He
he
sure wants one
does he
at
believe he
his
has one? Definitely.
yes. At his content day, he said, for me, reflecting on last year, for me, third sucks.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not where he wants to be.
So that's
Marcus
interesting.
Armstrong would love to be third. Scott Dixon hates it. It's first or nothing. Let's go, Scott.
Yeah.
Other liveries that stayed fairly static. We saw the McLaren liveries, all three of them. We've still got Christian, mostly papaya. Pato's got the papaya in black. And then we have Nolan Siegel with the papaya in blue, which I really
Right.
like, by the way. I like that papaya in blue a lot.
Yeah.
Um, might
And
be my favorite of the McLarens. I don't know for
yeah, and
sure.
I think otherwise most of the other liveries stayed fairly similar that we've seen so far. No big
Hmm.
changes over at Andretti other than
Other than Will's.
Will's, yeah, obviously, but that and some of the other cars down the grid. I know Stingray Rob's car is still sponsored by Goodhart, so not a lot of changes yet down the grid that we've seen. I know the other two Ganassi cars. Obviously, we talked about Dixon's car not changing at all, and Alex's car is very similar. DHL is still on board. No big changes there. That's going to be an easy car to spot on the grid as well.
What sponsor would even imagine dropping sponsoring Alex Pillow right now? That would be insane. That would be a silly decision.
Especially if you're a global brand like DHL, and Alex is really building a global fan base around his IndyCar wins. So
He sure
I
is.
think and we haven't talked about this yet, but I think it's going to be interesting to watch Alex this year because a couple of things. First of all, he's the champion again. He's going to have a big target on his back. But one thing he doesn't have on his back or hanging over his head this year is the lawsuit.
Whew.
So all that is gone. All that distraction, all that other stuff. Can he be better?
We saw him have a monumental historic season with an incredibly stressful, always present cloud hanging over his
Right.
mind. And he didn't want to talk about it much, but he talked about that, about being always aware last season of this thing that was going on. And other people got to get off the grid and celebrate their wins or go work on the car. He got off the grid and got on the phone with lawyers. I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see, and he still managed to show us joy in his
Yeah.
racing. I am so excited to see an unencumbered Alex.
Yeah. If nothing else, he's just going to be a much happier person throughout the year. I don't know how he could be more successful, but he'll be a lot of fun to be around. So I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the news for this week.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
our
exciting stuff, but we're going to have more next week. We'll look at the Phoenix test. We'll talk about any other news that happens to pop up. Maybe we'll get some team or driver announcements
maybe.
anytime now.
Anytime now, Dale Coyne. We're just
Yeah,
waiting.
exactly. So we'll see what happens then. But until next week, I'm Harvey and I'm here with Kaz. And we are Rides and Drives Team Radio, your ultimate IndyCar fan podcast. Subscribe and like our posts and like the podcast no matter where you listen to it, because we'd love to have you come back time and time again. We're having a blast doing this, and we hope you're having fun listening. If so, drop us a comment, send us an email. We're looking forward to hearing from you and what you want to know about as the season progresses.
Yeah, we can't wait for the start of the IndyCar season. We're so close. We can taste it. And I just want as many people on this ride as possible.
All right. So thank you again, everyone. For Kaz, I'm Harvey, and we're Rides and Drives Team Radio. Have a great week, everybody.
Drive safe, everybody.